Hello and welcome back. It's been a full month since I've challenged myself to use more of my yarn stash. I called this whole thing the Knit a Stash Challenge, and I thought it would be a good point to check in now, especially since January this year felt like it's been 2 years instead of just a few weeks. That must have been the longest January on record. Maybe one of the things we should kind of define, or I want to define, is what is actually stash yarn, because at the moment I buy something and put it into my stash, which is behind me, it is stash yarn. But is that really what I want it to be? I think for the purposes of this challenge, stash yarn is something that I've owned more than a year. So it must have been yarn that I've bought at least a year ago and have not used yet, because I've either bought it with no project in mind, or I did buy it with a project in mind and then that project didn't come to pass, or I did buy it for a project but bought much too much, so it's just been sitting in my stash because it's also too much to give away or throw away. I think that is the definition of stash yarn I'm going with for this project. With that definition of stash yarn in mind, I did finish a project that I haven't really talked about the other day, which is using stash yarn. Was yarn that I bought years ago for a project, used for a project, and then just had too much left over. I started it last year, so I'm not 100% I should count it towards this challenge, but I did finish it this year, so I think I will, just to make myself feel a bit better. Also, it has used up some yarn in my stash and made more space, so I think that is great. I cannot really show you this. It's the Merino blanket. I'm going to put in a picture or video if I have something. I can't show you this because I've already boxed it up. It's a present for a friend, so I do not really want to open the box again just to show you. But it's done, and that really felt good. It was a great way to start the year with a new project, just fresh off the needles and ready to give away. Let me show you my basket. So this is the basket of all the stash yarn that I want to use this year. It doesn't look like there's been anything done, and really it hasn't. But I did start a few projects. This was the biggest ball of yarn in my stash. It was 400 grams in the beginning. It's now down to 250, I think. So made good progress on this, making a big, lovely scarf out of it. And because it's just a scarf, and scarves don't really take that long, even though it is a bit more of a complicated pattern than you usually have with scarf, going really well so far. Just trying to figure out how big of a scarf to make, because I think I will have at the end of this still some of this left over. So the question is, do I just make it longer until I run out of yarn and then possibly have a comically large scarf? Wouldn't be the first time. Or will I stop and use whatever's left over for like a hat? But then I do have to stop at a point where I have enough for a hat left. So realistically, I really need to keep weighing this yarn to make the decision. We'll also see how long. Hit myself with the needle there. I will also have to know how long this is actually going to be once I hit a point where I think I need to stop to have enough left over for a hat. We'll see. I don't think it's going to take me much longer, possibly not this month, just because I'm going on a holiday very soon and will not take any of my knitting with me. And I'm going to lose another week. And this month is going to be very short, hopefully, not as long as January. One other thing I have cast on, actually just cast on this morning, is, can't really see anything. This is going to be a hap. So a hap is basically just a wrap. It's the Scottish or Shetlandish, I'm not 100% sure what. It's a word for something to wrap up warm in, which is a wrap or shawl. I'm going to make a very basic garter stitch center. I also just lost a few stitches just showing you this. Great. So a hap is basically just a wrap. I'm going to make a garter stitch center, and then traditionally there is some kind of wavy pattern on the border with a different color. I do have some white that I'm going to add that has basically that has mostly almost the same gauge as this blue one, possibly also another lighter blue that I have left over. So not only am I going to use a lot of the navy blue yarn that I have, but I'm also going to add a few extra balls of yarn to finish this off. Which is great. I mean, I didn't really think that I would add to the basket because it is big and full. But I think I will actually have to do that. I did talk about this lovely red yarn. I should probably take it out of the bag because it's making a lot of sound. I wanted to do a little lazy baby blanket, but having looked again at the pattern that I had in mind for it, it looked very different in my mind than it actually looks on the website. It was a Little Moon Patterns by Pearl Soho, which is a bit basic. I mean, it's nice, it's very nice, but For a baby blanket, I don't really want to do or use too much lace because lace always needs blocking, and with a baby blanket, you do not want to add more things for parents to do. They shouldn't be required to wash it and then block something. They're not going to do that ever. So I wouldn't do a lace pattern unless I'm really, really convinced. And looking at the pattern, while it does look really nice on the website, I think it looks absolutely lovely and fine. Actually, it's not too great. So by great, I mean it is not very intricate. I'm losing words today. So it's not. It's a very basic pattern. Basically, it's just one kind of pattern that just repeats the whole blanket. It's probably like 6 or 8 rows and 6 or 8 stitches as well. So not something that is worth the extra effort for parents. So for anybody else, for anybody else, that would be fine. But a baby blanket needs to be washable and washed often. So I would have done it if it was a really nice pattern that I'm convinced of, but this one isn't it. So anyway, all of this to say, I've been looking at other patterns that I'm going to use for this lovely yarn because I still love the yarn, and I did find something that is brioche, like two-color brioche, that I'm now thinking of using with this one, which means it's because it's two-color brioche and I have nothing in my little basket here that is the same yarn weight. I will have to add more yarn, which is great. I just went through all of my stash looking for yarn that is similar in yarn weight and also is a color that really goes well with the red. I settled on some whitish off-white color that I have. It's bamboo and cotton mix. This is a cotton, the red is cotton and viscose mix, so I think it will go okay together. And I have roughly the same amount of yarn from that one. So it's both of them. I have about 750 or 800 meters, which should be enough according to the pattern. They also have roughly the same yarn weight. So whereas the red viscose that I have here has 17 reps per inch, the whitish cotton I have is 18 reps per inch, no, 16. That's 16 reps per inch. It's a tiny bit thicker, which I think is close enough to be used. I mean, we'll see. That's my idea at the moment. I haven't started on this because I do have enough other things that I am working on right now, and I've started. I have, for no reason at all other than that a hop along just started today, and I was feeling like I wanted to do that. Come back to this one actually. I did only start this morning, but I'm not really committed to the pattern yet. So because actually the pattern is really, really basic, as I said earlier, it's going to be a garter stitch center, which is what I want. So here's my problem. My problem basically is myself. I wanted something that I can knit on without a pattern that is completely mindless knitting, because all of the things I am knitting at the moment require a pattern, which is not really a problem other than I cannot just sit down and start knitting. I will always have to get out my little pad and pull up the pattern. And if I've been working on another, it's stupid. It's me. It's not really a big effort, but it takes half a minute or a minute to set everything up. So I really do enjoy something like this, just garter stitch, just something that I can knit without a pattern, without having to think, because the things I'm working on, the patterns are too complex for me to memorize them. So I need to look at a pattern. So I wanted a garter stitch one. So which one this one is. But then I'm looking at this and thinking, oh, this is really boring. This is so basic. It's not even garter. I mean, because I'm knitting in around, so I'm just knitting, right? There's no knitting, stocking stitch. So it's actually looking nice. It's not even garter stitch. But it is boring to look at. There's nothing interesting other than the increases, which I'm doing by just some yarn. I was trying to put that against the white. That isn't complex. That isn't challenging. So I am already bored at this one, even though I've only just started, and even though it is exactly what I wanted. And this is my problem, right? My problem, as I said, is myself, because I'm bored by this very basic pattern that I chose because it was very basic. I do not want to count anything. I do not want to count rows. I do not want to count stitches. So I don't have to do any of that here. I'm just knitting until I feel it's big enough for me to change color and add the border, right? That is all of my thinking. I'm just keep on knitting this thing. Fine, great. But already I'm looking at it thinking like, oh, that's basic. It's basic. So not 100% committed. I did have another pattern for the blue yarn in mind anyway. So let's see. But then again, I have a lot of the blue yarn still left. So I might get, the thing that I'm started with, the plain stocking stitch, and another pattern out of it because I have enough. I do actually have enough for 2 projects, especially if I'm using another color with this blue one. I think it will look nice. I think it will be okay to wrap up in, but it's not intricate. It's nothing of this is special. Nothing of this is something that people will go and say, like, I've never seen anything like this before. Anyway, it's only been a month. We have 11 months left in this year, and I hope this basket is going to be empty by the end of that. Until then, have a good knitting month, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye bye.